Investors are eyeing the Federal Reserve minutes set to be released this afternoon amid speculation that we will see interest rates continue to creep higher, perhaps another interest rate hike in June. Joining me right now is the president of the Philadelphia Federal Reserve, President Patrick Harker. Patrick, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to get your take first off on the economic story right now. How would you characterize things?
I think things are solid. I mean, on average, the economy looks pretty good. There are pockets of continued distress, communities around my district, around the country, but generally, labor market's doing well. We're moving slowly but surely to our 2% inflation target. Things feel good.
So, but we look at that GDP number that we got for the quarter, last quarter, 0.7%, and people are saying, whoa, here we are at the start of an interest rate increase, a string of rate increases. Is the Fed going to raise rates just at a time when we're just beginning to get traction, or even getting traction, the 0.7% GDP? I know is it backward looking, the GDP? I don't know. What's your take?
Well, Q1 always has some issues, and it's had issues, measurement issues for several years. What we'll see is if that rebounds in Q2, and that's what I'm really looking for.
You're an FOMC voting member this year.
Yes.
Would you be poised to have a string of rate hikes this year?
Yeah, so I've asked for, and my forecast is 3 rate hikes this year. We have 1 under our belt. I think 2 more are appropriate. I've not factored in any fiscal changes to that forecast. So I think we measure those out over the course of the remainder of the year.
Yeah, I think you make such an important point in terms of you haven't factored in these fiscal changes. We don't know where we are in terms of the fiscal situation. We just had Kevin Brady on the program, chairman of House Ways and Means, and he said he's going to get tax reform. They're going to get tax reform done this year. If tax reform happens and we get a much lower corporate tax rate, does that change the dynamic for the Fed?
It could. The devil's in the detail, right? We need to see exactly what that policy is and how that will affect the economy in the long run.
Is June on the table for an interest rate increase?
Sure. It's every meeting to me is on the table.
Yeah. So we'll probably see a rate hike June.
We could.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you this, because one thing that I spoke with Ben Bernanke about just the other day, actually, that the size of the Fed's balance sheet and the shrinking of the balance sheet, how tough is that going to be?
No, I don't think it's going to be tough.
You don't think it's going to be tough?
No, I think we're
talking about almost $5 trillion, right? $4.5 trillion balance sheet?
Yeah, and we'll go back to something that's around 2.7 Ben's been talking about and others have been talking about. It's really the level of reserves we need to effectively have a monetary policy implementation for the country, right? So what that number is, the number varies anywhere between $100 billion I've seen, $1 trillion, call it $500 billion you need to effectively administer monetary policy through the Fed funds rate.
How do you do that? You just unwind it, what, month by month or quarter by quarter? How does that happen?
To me, it starts with the basic design principle. Keep it as simple as possible and signal to the markets as early and as often as possible how we're going to do it. Just let it run off in a very simple way, whether that's so much per month or just having caps on the amount we reinvest or roll into the market. There are various options on the table. I think we haven't decided that yet, but my view is just keep it simple and let the markets know what we're doing to minimize any disruption to the market.
So you want to be as transparent as possible?
Oh, absolutely.
And even with interest rate increases, it feels like the Fed members, your colleagues, are very transparent. Yes, 3 hikes this year.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's part of our job.
No surprises for markets.
Yeah, we don't want to surprise the market.
Right. Tell me about your district. What's going on in Philadelphia right now?
So Philly is one of the smaller districts, but we're a microcosm of the country. We have an urban center, Philadelphia, that's gentrifying, but at the same time, Philadelphia, of the top 10 cities, is the poorest major city in America.
Wow.
And we have other struggling communities. So we've launched a program, the Economic Growth and Mobility Project, to not only conduct research to help those communities, but also to bring people into the field to help those communities solve some problems that they're facing. And we want to bring facts and research to bear.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to the subject of jobs, this is where, policy coming out of the administration sort of dovetails with what is necessary in terms of employment opportunities, right? So talk to us about that. Do we need more people?
Yeah, so, yeah, we do. If you look at, if we want growth to be higher than what we have today, we either need productivity growth and/or growth of the labor force. And in both cases, those numbers have been low. If you think about growth of the labor force, it is extremely low, given that we, the boomers, are retiring.
So what would you propose then in terms of, how would you advise the president in terms of immigration law, given these concerns?
So I am not in the business of advising the president or Congress on any policy that's outside my wheelhouse. That said, I think there is an economic fact that we need more people in the workforce, whether that's bringing people off the sideline through workforce development programs and other such programs, providing infrastructure. This is the part that people don't often think about: transportation, housing, so that you can have a job, but if I can't get to the job, I don't have a job.
Yeah.
Right? So those infrastructure issues are really important. And how we let people in the country, that's not in my wheelhouse, but we do need those skilled workers.
I think you make a really important point. Now, we've been talking about the president's budget this morning, and the budget obviously is being debated on both sides of the aisle because of these rosy projections of 3% growth.
Right.
Is 3% growth achievable if we were to see a tax reform package include much lower taxes?
So long-run productivity growth is key to this, plus growth of the labor force. And so, yeah, we could get a short-term bump, but if we want to sustain growth higher than what we have today, we need to make the investments in improving education, infrastructure, you name it, that will increase the productive capacity of our economy.
Because there are jobs to be had, but people don't have the skill sets that are required.
Oh, yeah, I hear this over and over, and the data shows this, too. If you look at the hires versus the openings, that gap has been pretty persistent over the course of the last several months, really several years. I'll give you one example. So there's a truck repair business I know. The guy doubled the size of his truck repair operation. He has half his bays empty because he can't find qualified mechanics. He's paying his mechanics over $100,000 a year. And they need digital skills. So today it's not enough just to have a strong back and a strong will. You need skills.
Yeah, but I mean, is the onus on business or the onus on government to provide those skills? Where does this training come from? Is this a government, do you think, or
and the answer is
private?
Yes, both.
Both.
Right? It really needs to be a partnership.
All right, we will leave it there. Great to see you, Patrick Harker. Thank you so much, the president of the Philadelphia Federal Reserve.